che bello il vetro rotto così, però, guarda che bell'effetto. Ho visto un video su Instagram di dei tizi che ti mettono tipo il vetro delle scale e poi ci danno un colpetto col martello e il vetro si crepa e fa quell'effetto crepato. Io non credo che sia una bella idea. Non so se qualcuno di voi ce l'ha. Mi sembra una bella idea. Però, che so. Il messaggio di errore appena sei arrivato con l'ascensore. Ah, ok. Sono tre vetri. Sì, che rompono quello in mezzo. Sì, rompono quello in mezzo. Devi passare in ordine davanti alle richieste rosse e succede una cosa. Questa è una centrale da far esplodere. Sì.
Maya nodded, checking her press credentials for the third time. It had taken 6 weeks of bureaucratic warfare, calling in every favor she'd earned in 8 years of photojournalism just to get clearance for this visit. 48 hours. That's all they'd given her. It had been 2 years since she'd seen Jake, 2 years since he deployed with SEAL Team 3. Their last conversation had been a video call, Jake's face pixelated and distant on her laptop screen, his voice delayed by satellite lag. He'd seemed fine then, tired but fine. Their mother didn't believe it. "Something's wrong with your brother," she'd said 3 months ago. "I can feel it. You need to check on him." Mothers knew things. Twin siblings knew things too. The Chinook flared hard, nose up, and Maya's stomach lurched. Dust exploded around them in a brown cloud that swallowed everything. Before the wheels fully touched down, she saw him, Lieutenant Jake Torres, standing at the edge of the landing zone, one hand shielding his eyes from the rotor wash, the other resting unconsciously on his sidearm. Even through the dust storm, she recognized his silhouette. Same broad shoulders, same confident stance, but something was off. She grabbed her duffel and camera bag, jumping down before the loadmaster could object. The prop wash tried to knock her flat, but she leaned into it, running toward her brother. Jake met her halfway, and they collided in a hug that should have felt like coming home. Instead, he flinched. It was subtle, most people wouldn't have noticed, but Maya wasn't most people. She was his twin, his mirror, his other half. She felt the tension in his shoulders, the way his muscles locked up before forcing themselves to relax. When they pulled apart, she got her first clear look at his face. The Jake who'd left had bright eyes and an easy smile. This Jake had eyes that couldn't stop scanning, cataloging threats, calculating distances to cover. His smile, when it came, didn't reach those eyes. "You shouldn't have come," he said, his voice rougher than she remembered. "It's not safe here, Maya." "Nowhere I go is safe," she countered, adjusting her camera bag. "Last month I was in Syria, before that Yemen. I think I can handle Afghanistan." "That's different. You were documenting, observing here." He paused, jaw working. "Here you're a target, and you're my responsibility." Behind them, the Chinook's engines whined higher. Jake grabbed her arm and pulled her away as the massive helicopter lifted off, disappearing into the afternoon haze as quickly as it had arrived. The sudden silence was jarring. Maya studied the base as Jake led her toward the main compound. Fob Guardian was smaller than she'd expected, a collection of reinforced structures surrounded by HESCO barriers and concertina wire. Guard towers stood at each corner, manned by soldiers who looked bored and alert simultaneously. The place had the temporary feel of all forward operating bases, like it could be abandoned in an hour or defended for a year depending on what Washington decided. "Where is everyone?" Maya asked. The base felt hollow, echo-empty. "Most of the teams deployed this morning. Big op in the Korangal Valley. We're on standby reserve." Jake's hand hadn't left his sidearm. "Just skeleton crew until they get back." They passed a group of Marines who nodded respectfully at Jake. He returned the gesture but didn't stop to chat. Maya noticed the way he positioned himself between her and every corner, every doorway. Protective, paranoid, maybe both. The base commander, a weathered colonel named Peterson, met them at the operations center. He looked at Maya the way ranchers looked at coyotes near the henhouse, tolerated but not welcomed. 48 hours, Miss Torres," Peterson said, not offering his hand. "You stay in designated areas, you don't photograph anything classified, and you don't get in the way. Lieutenant Torres is responsible for you. Clear. Crystal, Maya said, matching his tone. Peterson's expression softened slightly. Your brother's a good man, one of the best SEALs I've worked with, but this isn't Disneyland. You're a liability we don't need right now. After he left, Jake showed her to the guest quarters, a cramped room with a cot, a metal locker, and a single window reinforced with sandbags. Home sweet home, he said without humor. Chow's at 1800. Stay close to me, okay? Jake, she caught his arm. What's wrong? And don't say nothing. I'm your twin. I know you. For a moment, his carefully maintained mask cracked. She saw the exhaustion beneath it, the weight of things he couldn't talk about, wouldn't talk about. Then the mask reformed. Later, he said quietly. We'll talk later, I promise. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. The base had an energy she recognized from other war zones, that taut, waiting feeling like a guitar string tuned too tight. She lay on the cot, listening to the unfamiliar sounds. Generators humming, distant radio chatter, boots on gravel as sentries walked their rounds. Then around 2300 hours she heard it, a low rumble from the mountains like thunder but not thunder. Once, twice, 3 times. Explosions. She sat up, heart racing. They sounded close, too close. Through the reinforced window, she saw Jake running toward the operations center, along with every other person on base. Maya grabbed her camera out of pure instinct. Something was happening, something was coming. She had no idea that in less than 3 hours, everything would change. That the relative safety of this forward operating base was an illusion about to shatter. That the sounds in the mountains weren't random attacks, they were coordination signals. The enemy was coming, and Fob Guardian, with its skeleton crew and false sense of security, was exactly where they wanted to strike. Maya checked her watch, 23:17 hours. The last normal moment of her life was ticking away. Morning came with deceptive tranquility. Maya woke to the sound of reveille echoing across Fob Guardian, the scratchy bugle call fighting against the generator's constant rumble. The explosions from the previous night had turned out to be controlled demolitions, or so the official word claimed. Jake had returned to her quarters at 200, told her everything was fine, and left before she could press him for details. She didn't believe him for a second. The mess hall was half empty when she arrived for breakfast. Maybe 20 personnel total, scattered across tables meant for 60. She grabbed powdered eggs and coffee that tasted like motor oil, then spotted Jake sitting with 3 other men. He waved her over. Maya, meet the guys. This is Doc Ramirez, our medic. A stocky Latino man with kind eyes and a tattoo of the caduceus on his forearm nodded. Petty Officer Chen, communications specialist. Chen was younger, maybe 25, with the lean build of a distance runner. And this ugly bastard is Chief Morrison, our logistics wizard. Morrison, a grizzled man with gray threading through his buzz cut, snorted. She looks like you, Jake. Does that make her ugly too? The table erupted in laughter and Maya felt some of the tension from last night dissolve. This was the military she recognized from her embed work, dark humor as a coping mechanism, brotherhood forged under pressure. But she also noticed what wasn't said. The empty chairs, the way Jake's eyes kept drifting to the door. How many people are supposed to be on this base? Maya asked, sipping her terrible coffee. The table went quiet. Doc Ramirez finally answered. Full complement, about 60, right now. 12 security personnel, handful of support staff, and us 4 on standby reserve. Everyone else is out on ops. That seems, Maya searched for a diplomatic word, minimal. That's one way to put it, Morrison muttered, stabbing his eggs. Another way is sitting ducks, but what do I know? I just manage the supply chain. Jake shot him a warning look, but Morrison didn't back down. There was tension here, Maya realized. Strategic disagreements, fear masked as frustration. After breakfast, Jake offered to show her around the base. As they walked, Maya photographed everything her credentials allowed, soldiers maintaining weapons, the armory's exterior, the daily routines that kept a forward operating base functional. Through her lens, she captured the isolation of this place, the way it sat in a valley surrounded by mountains that could hide an army. "Want to blow off some steam?" Jake asked when they reached the firing range, a cleared area backed by a massive sand berm. "See if you remember anything I taught you." Maya grinned. "You sure you want to embarrass yourself in front of your baby sister?" "I'm older by 4 minutes, that hardly counts." 4 minutes is 4 minutes. The range was empty except for a bored-looking corporal who served as range safety officer. Jake signed out an M4 carbine and 2 magazines. The weapon was heavier than Maya remembered, more substantial. She checked the chamber automatically, empty, then examined the sights. "Muscle memory," Jake observed, approval in his voice. "When's the last time you shot?" 2 years ago. That ranch in Texas, remember, before you deployed." She didn't mention that she'd thought about that day constantly, replaying every lesson he'd taught her, as if somehow keeping the memory alive would keep him safe. Jake set up paper targets at 25 meters, 5 rounds standing unsupported. "Show me what you've got." Maya seated the magazine, chambered a round, and settled into her stance. The familiar weight of the rifle, the pressure point of the trigger, the discipline of breathing control, it all came back. She exhaled slowly and squeezed. The first shot surprised her, as it should. The subsequent 4 came in a rhythm she didn't have to think about. When she lowered the rifle, Jake was already walking to the target. He came back shaking his head, but there was pride in his eyes. 5 shots, 5 in the black, tight grouping. Not bad for a civilian. "Not bad," Maya raised an eyebrow. "That's all you've got." Doc Ramirez had wandered over, drawn by the gunfire. "Let me see that." He examined the target, then whistled. "Jake, your sister can shoot, like really shoot." "She always could," Jake admitted. "I just forgot how good." They spent the next hour on the range. Jake coached her through different positions, kneeling, prone, shooting from behind cover. Chen joined them, setting up more complex scenarios. Maya found herself enjoying it, the technical challenge, the focus required. For a brief time, she wasn't a photojournalist in a war zone. She was just a sister, spending time with her brother, doing something they both understood. But reality intruded when the afternoon convoy arrived. 3 Humvees bringing supplies from the main operating base 30 miles away. Morrison supervised the unloading with Doc's help, and Maya noticed Jake's entire demeanor change. He became hypervigilant again, positioning himself with clear sightlines, his hand drifting to his sidearm. "The convoys are the most dangerous part," Jake explained quietly. "Ambush opportunities, IEDs, every arrival is a risk." Maya photographed the unloading process, capturing the controlled chaos of military logistics. Through her viewfinder, she saw Morrison arguing with the convoy commander, gesturing emphatically. The conversation looked heated. When the convoy departed, Morrison stormed past them, his face dark. "They're not sending reinforcements," he said to Jake. "Told them we're undermanned. They said the op in Korangal takes priority. We're stuck with skeleton crew for at least another 48 hours. Jake's jaw tightened. "Did you tell them about the intelligence reports, the increased chatter?" "They don't care. We're low priority until something happens." Morrison kicked a rock, and by then it might be too late. As the sun began its descent toward the mountains, painting them in shades of orange and red, 3 Blackhawk helicopters lifted off from the base. Maya watched them go, carrying what remained of the operational personnel to join the Korangal operation. The base felt even emptier now. She found Jake on the eastern perimeter, staring at the mountains. The golden hour light softened his features, but couldn't erase the worry etched there. "Something's wrong," Maya said, not a question. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Intelligence picked up chatter, increased cell phone activity in the mountains, unusual movement patterns, could be nothing, could be something. And you're here with 12 people. 14, counting you and the kitchen staff. He smiled without humor. The brass thinks we're paranoid. Maybe we are. Maybe those demolitions last night were just insurgents clearing old minefields. Maybe the chatter is normal background noise. But you don't believe that. No, Jake admitted. I don't. I feel it, Maya. Something's coming. I just don't know what or when. The sun touched the mountain peaks, and shadows rushed across the valley like a flood. Maya shivered despite the lingering heat. She'd learned to trust her instincts in war zones. They'd kept her alive in Syria, in Yemen, in a dozen other places where death waited around every corner. Those same instincts were screaming now. Jake, she said softly, if something happens. Nothing's going to happen, he interrupted, but his voice lacked conviction. Get some rest. Dinner's at 1800. Tomorrow I'll show you the rest of the base, and then your 48 hours will be up and you'll be out of here. He walked away before she could respond, leaving Maya alone on the perimeter as darkness claimed the mountains. She didn't know it yet, but she had less than 8 hours of peace remaining. The storm was gathering in those mountains, preparing to descend. And Fob Guardian, with its 14 souls and false sense of security, stood directly in its path. Maya's eyes snapped open in absolute darkness. For a disorienting moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then the thin mattress, the smell of dust and diesel fuel, the distant hum of generators, Fob Guardian. She checked her watch. 2:03 hours. Something had woken her, but she couldn't identify what. Then the world exploded. The blast wave hit first, a concussive force that felt like a giant's fist slamming into the building. The windows shattered inward despite their sandbag reinforcement, spraying glass and grit. Maya rolled off the cot instinctively, hitting the floor as the ceiling rained dust. Her ears rang with a high-pitched whine that drowned out everything else. A second explosion, closer, the entire building shook. Then came the gunfire, not the controlled, disciplined shots of a firefight, but a wall of automatic weapons fire. AK-47s, dozens of them, their distinctive crack-crack-crack overlapping into a continuous roar. Maya's training kicked in, the hostile environment courses, the countless war zones, the survival instincts honed through years of documenting conflict. She scrambled toward her boots in the darkness, her hands shaking as she laced them. Grabbed the essentials, camera bag, credentials, phone. Her fingers moved mechanically even as her mind struggled to process what was happening. The door to her quarters exploded inward. Maya screamed, diving behind the overturned cot. But the silhouette in the doorway was familiar, broad shoulders, the distinctive outline of tactical gear. Maya, Jake's voice cut through the ringing in her ears. Move now. He was across the room in 3 strides, hauling her up by her arm. That's when she saw the blood. His left shoulder was dark and wet, the fabric of his uniform torn, blood streaming down his arm. You're hit. Later, he shoved her toward the door. We need to move. The corridor was chaos. Smoke billowed from somewhere, illuminated by emergency lights casting everything in hellish red. Soldiers ran past, weapons up, shouting coordinates and contact reports. An explosion somewhere outside shook the building again, and chunks of ceiling crashed down where they'd been standing seconds before. Jake pulled her into a run, his good hand locked around her wrist. They burst out of the building into a nightmare. Fob Guardian was burning. Tracer rounds cut through the smoke-filled air like deadly fireflies, green from the insurgent positions, red from the defenders. The eastern perimeter was gone, just a gap in the defensive wall where HESCO barriers had been blown apart. Through that gap poured figures in dark clothing, dozens of them, spreading through the compound like a flood. Contact east, multiple hostiles breaching Alpha Sector. Someone screamed over the radio. Jake dragged Maya toward a concrete barrier, pushing her down behind it. Bullets sparked off the barrier's face, inches from her head. She pressed herself flat, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break her ribs. "How many?" Jake shouted into his radio, blood dripping from his wounded shoulder onto the dusty ground. "At least 40, maybe more." Chen's voice came back tight with controlled panic. "They knew, LT. They fucking knew we were undermanned." Jake's face went pale in the muzzle flashes. He keyed his radio again. "All personnel fighting withdrawal to the communications bunker. I repeat, fall back to the bunker." He turned to Maya, gripping her shoulders with both hands despite the obvious pain it caused him. His eyes locked onto hers with fierce intensity. "Listen to me. We're going to run to the armory, that white building, at 10 o'clock. Stay behind me. When I move, you move. When I stop, you stop. Understand?" Maya nodded, unable to form words. "Say it." "I understand." "Good girl, ready, go." They ran. Maya had never experienced anything like it, the surreal terror of sprinting through a firefight. Bullets cracked past her head with sounds like angry wasps. Explosions threw up geysers of dirt. A soldier to her right went down screaming, and she had to force herself not to stop, not to help, just to keep running. Jake moved like a wounded wolf, limping but fast, his weapon up despite his damaged shoulder, his head constantly swiveling to identify threats. He fired twice without breaking stride, and somewhere ahead a figure crumpled. The armory door was steel, designed to withstand indirect fire. Jake yanked it open and shoved Maya through, following and slamming it behind them. The sudden quiet was jarring. The thick walls muffled the battle to a distant rumble. Doc Ramirez was already there, loading magazines with mechanical efficiency. He looked up as they entered, his expression shifting immediately when he saw Jake's shoulder. "Jesus, LT." "Not now, Doc." Jake staggered to the weapons rack, pulling down rifles with his good hand. "We need to get to the bunker." "How many made it?" "Chen's on his way. Morrison's with him. We lost Rodriguez and Kim in the initial breach." Doc's voice was steady, professional, but Maya could see the fear in his eyes. "Haven't heard from anyone else." Jake handed Maya an M4 rifle, the same one she'd qualified with that afternoon, a lifetime ago. "You remember how to use this?" Her hands closed around the familiar weight. "Yes." "Safety's here. Magazine release here. You point it at anyone who's not us, you understand? Anyone." "Jake, I can't." "You can and you will." His voice was harder now, the officer taking over. "Because I can't protect you and fight at the same time, not with this shoulder." He swayed slightly, his face going gray. Blood dripped steadily onto the floor. The radio crackled. "LT, this is Chen. We're pinned down at the motor pool. We can't reach you." Jake closed his eyes briefly, then keyed the radio. "Copy that. We'll come to you. Hold position." Doc cut away Jake's sleeve, exposing the wound. Maya felt bile rise in her throat. She could see bone, see the way the bullet had torn through muscle. Doc worked quickly, packing the wound with gauze. "Through and through," Doc announced. "You're lucky missed the artery, but you need a hospital LT soon." "Get in line," Jake muttered. He stood, testing his arm, wincing. "Let's move. We get Chen and Morrison, then we fort up in the bunker until dawn. QRF will come at first light." "If there's anyone left to rescue," Doc said quietly. Jake didn't respond. He moved to the door, cracked it open, scanning the compound. Maya watched him transform. Despite the wound, despite the blood loss, he was still a SEAL, still a warrior. This was what he'd been trained for. She gripped the rifle tighter, her photographer's hands now wrapped around a weapon of war. "Clear," Jake whispered. "Stay close, we move fast." They stepped back into hell. The night was far from over. The compound had become a maze of death. Maya followed Jake and Doc through the burning ruins of Fob Guardian, her finger resting on the trigger guard of the M4. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every corner could be an ambush. The acrid smoke burned her lungs, mixing with the smell of cordite and something worse, burning flesh. Jake moved like a ghost despite his wound, using hand signals she somehow understood. Stop. Move. Cover. Her body obeyed before her mind could process the commands. Behind her, Doc breathed steadily, his medical pack bouncing against his back. They reached the motor pool by cutting through the destroyed mess hall. Inside, furniture was overturned, windows shattered. A body lay near the serving line, one of the kitchen staff. Maya forced herself not to look at the face. "Chen Morrison," Jake hissed into the darkness. Here, Chen's voice came from behind a disabled Humvee. "We've got company." Muzzle flashes erupted from the vehicle's far side. Maya hit the ground as bullets chewed through the mess hall wall above her head. Jake returned fire with controlled bursts, advancing despite his wounded shoulder. Doc grabbed Maya's collar and dragged her behind an overturned table. "How many?" Jake called out. "3, maybe 4, Morrison's deeper voice answered. "They've got us boxed in." Jake's face was pale, sheened with sweat. He was losing too much blood. Maya could see him calculating odds, distances, angles of fire. Then his eyes found hers. "Can you shoot?" Maya's mouth went dry. "I qualified on the range." "That's not what I asked." His voice was sharp, cutting. "Can you point that rifle at another human being and pull the trigger?" She thought about lying, about saying yes just to make him feel better, but this was Jake, her twin, her mirror. He'd know. "I don't know," she whispered. Something shifted in his expression, not disappointment but a grim acceptance. "Then stay down and stay safe. Doc on me." What happened next took less than 30 seconds but felt like an eternity. Jake and Doc moved with practiced coordination, suppressive fire and movement, each covering the other's advance. Maya watched, frozen, as her brother, wounded, bleeding, became someone she barely recognized. A warrior, a killer, efficient and brutal. When the firing stopped, 4 bodies lay near the Humvee. Jake didn't even look at them. Chen emerged from cover, his face smudged with dirt and blood. Morrison followed, limping, his left leg soaked red below the knee. Maya's training as a journalist kicked in. She documented enough conflicts to recognize a shrapnel wound when she saw one. "Can you walk?" Doc asked Morrison, already moving to assess the injury. "I can run if I have to." Morrison's jaw was clenched tight against the pain. "Where to, LT?" "Communications bunker. It's reinforced, defensible. We hold there until QRF arrives." Jake swayed slightly, catching himself against the Humvee. His face had gone from pale to gray. "Jake," Maya reached for him. "I'm fine," but he wasn't. Blood had soaked through Doc's field dressing, dripping down his fingers. "Let's move now." The communications bunker sat at the compound center, a squat concrete structure built to survive rocket attacks. Getting there meant crossing 40 meters of open ground. Maya could see figures moving through the smoke, insurgents clearing buildings, hunting survivors. "We'll never make it across," Chen said, voicing what they all knew. Jake studied the terrain with fatting focus. "Smoke grenades. We throw everything we have, create a wall, and run like hell." It was a terrible plan. It was also their only plan. They pooled their smoke grenades, 5 total. On Jake's signal, they threw them in a line across their route. Within seconds, thick white smoke billowed up, creating a curtain. But smoke worked both ways. If they couldn't see the enemy couldn't see them either. Both sides would be firing blind. "Go," Jake shouted. They ran. Maya's world compressed to the pounding of her boots, the weight of the rifle, the shapes of her companions appearing and disappearing in the smoke. Bullets cracked through the white wall, invisible death searching for targets. Someone screamed. She couldn't tell who. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. The bunker door materialized ahead like a mirage. Chen reached it first, yanking it open. Morrison stumbled through, then Doc. Jake grabbed Maya's arm and threw her inside, following and slamming the steel door behind them. Heavy bolts slid home. For a moment, they just breathed. The bunker was 15 feet square, windowless, lit by emergency lights. Radio equipment lined one wall. Weapons racks lined another. A steel door at the back led to an emergency tunnel, their last escape route if the main entrance was breached. Maya counted heads, 5 of them: Jake, Doc, Chen, Morrison, and herself. Out of 14 people on the base, only 5 had made it. Jake collapsed against the wall, sliding down to the floor. His eyes were unfocused, his breathing shallow and rapid. Doc was at his side immediately, cutting away more uniform, exposing the wound again. "He's going into shock," Doc announced. "Lost too much blood. I can stabilize him, but he needs a hospital soon." "How soon?" Morrison asked. 6 hours, maybe 8 if we're lucky. Chen checked his watch. QRF won't launch until daylight. That's 5 hours minimum plus flight time. We're looking at 7 hours earliest. "He'll make it," Doc said, but his voice lacked conviction. Maya knelt beside her brother, taking his good hand. His skin was cold and clammy. "Jake, stay with me, you hear me? Stay with me." His eyes found hers, struggling to focus. "Shouldn't have come." "Shut up, save your strength." Morrison moved to the communications equipment, flipping switches, adjusting dials. His expression darkened with each attempt. "Radio's dead. Main antenna must have been hit in the initial attack." "Try the backup," Chen suggested. "Backup's damaged too. We're transmitting but not receiving. Can't tell if anyone's hearing us." Morrison slammed his fist on the console. "We're cut off." Doc finished bandaging Jake's shoulder, then moved to Morrison's leg. The bunker filled with tense silence, broken only by Jake's labored breathing and the distant sounds of the insurgents systematically clearing the surface buildings above them. Maya sat against the wall, still holding Jake's hand, watching her brother's life leak away despite Doc's best efforts. This couldn't be happening. She was supposed to document wars, not be trapped in one. She was supposed to be the observer, the recorder, the one behind the camera. Chen was doing inventory, his voice clinical. Ammunition for maybe 2 hours of sustained firefight, water for 3 days, medical supplies almost depleted, no working long-range communications. "So we wait," Morrison said. "We hold until someone realizes we're dark and sends help." "If they realize," Chen corrected quietly. "With the Korangal operation ongoing, we might be low priority." An explosion rocked the bunker, insurgents testing the door's strength. Dust rained from the ceiling. The lights flickered but held. "They know we're here," Doc said unnecessarily. Another explosion, closer. The door held, but Maya could hear the metal groaning under the stress. How long before they brought something bigger? How long before they simply waited them out? Jake's hand tightened on hers. His eyes had regained some focus, though his face remained ashen. "The antenna," he whispered. "Roof, mounted antenna array." Chen frowned. "The backup antenna, LT, it's damaged. Even if it wasn't, we can't access the roof. We'd have to go back outside." "Not damaged, just disconnected." Jake's breathing was ragged. "Cable severed in the blast. Someone could repair it." Morrison and Chen exchanged looks. "Someone would have to climb to the roof," Morrison said slowly. "Through enemy-controlled territory. Repair the cable. Then stay there to operate the radio because the bunker set can't reach it wirelessly." "It's suicide," Chen stated flatly. Jake's eyes closed. "It's our only chance." Doc checked Jake's pulse, his expression grim. "His BP's dropping. Even with fluids, he won't last until morning without real medical intervention." Maya looked at her brother's pale face, at the blood-soaked bandages, at the man who'd spent his life protecting others now helpless on a bunker floor. She thought about their childhood promise, made when they were 8 years old after their father's funeral. "We protect each other. Always. No matter what." She looked at the rifle leaning against the wall beside her. The same rifle she'd fired on the range just hours ago, punching tight groups into paper targets. The same rifle she'd been too afraid to use when it mattered. Outside, another explosion. The enemy was getting closer. Inside, her brother was dying. And somewhere above them, on an exposed rooftop in the middle of a war zone, there was a broken antenna that could save them all. If someone was brave enough or desperate enough to try. Maya's hands had stopped shaking. She didn't know when that had happened. She looked at Jake, at Doc, at Chen and Morrison, 4 warriors who'd given everything to protect others. Her turn. "Tell me about the antenna," she heard herself say. The bunker went silent. "Maya, no." Jake tried to sit up, failed. "Tell me," she repeated, her voice stronger now. "How do I repair it?" "Absolutely not." Morrison's voice was firm, final. "You're a civilian, you're not trained for this." "Neither are you," Maya shot back. "Your logistics, Chen's comms, Doc's medical. None of you are assault specialists except Jake, and he can barely stand." "She's right," Chen admitted quietly. "We're support personnel. We can shoot, but moving through hostile territory, climbing exposed structures under fire, that's not what we trained for." Jake tried again to sit up, his face contorted with pain and fury. "Maya, listen to me." "No, you listen." She knelt beside him, gripping his good shoulder. "You taught me to shoot. You taught me to move, to think tactically. Every summer at the ranch, every lesson, every drill, you prepared me for this whether you meant to or not. That was different, that was. That was you trying to keep me safe in case something happened and you weren't there." Maya's voice cracked. "Well, something's happening, and you can't be there, so let me use what you taught me." Doc shook his head. "Even if you make it to the antenna, even if you repair it, you'd be completely exposed on that roof. They'd zero in on your position within minutes. Then I'll have minutes to call for help." Maya stood, moving to where Chen sat by the damaged communications equipment. Show me how to repair it, how to operate the radio, everything." Chen looked to Jake, who had gone silent, his jaw clenched so tight Maya could see the muscles jumping. Their eyes met, twin to twin, mirror to mirror. She saw the war raging behind his eyes, the instinct to protect her battling against the cold, tactical reality that she was right. "Jake," she said softly, "remember what we promised, after Dad's funeral." His eyes closed. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "We protect each other, always." "My turn, big brother." A long silence, then Jake's head dropped in defeat. "Chen, show her." Chen pulled out a tactical map, spreading it on the floor. "The communications building is here, 40 meters northeast. The main antenna array is roof-mounted. The cable runs up the exterior wall, got severed about 3 meters up, probably from shrapnel. You'll need to splice it back together." He produced a small toolkit from the equipment locker. "This is a cable splicer. You strip the insulation here, match the colored wires, red to red, blue to blue, green to green. Twist them together, use the connector caps, wrap it in electrical tape. 5 minutes if you know what you're doing." "Which I don't." "Which you will." Chen spent the next 20 minutes walking her through it, making her practice on spare cable until she could do it by feel in the dark. Her photographer's hands, trained for fine motor control with camera equipment, adapted quickly. Doc approached with Jake's tactical vest and gear. "This is rated for rifle rounds, but it's not magic. Center mass is protected, but your arms, legs, head, all vulnerable." He helped her into it, adjusting straps. The weight was immense, at least 25 pounds. "Night vision," Morrison said, handing her Jake's PVS-14 monocular. "The world goes green, but you'll see in the dark. This is the on switch. This adjusts brightness. Battery's good for another 6 hours." Jake watched from the floor, his face a mask of anguish. When Doc finished with the vest, Jake gestured her closer. With his good hand, he pulled her down until their foreheads touched, something they'd done since childhood, their own private ritual. "Listen carefully," he breathed. "The emergency tunnel exits behind the motor pool. You'll be behind their main position. Use that. Move slow, stay low. The comms building has an external ladder on the east side. They probably haven't secured it because it's exposed. That's your route up. Okay. The roof has a concrete equipment housing you can use for cover. Get behind it before you start working on the cable. And Maya, his voice broke. If they rush your position, if you can't hold them off, you run. You leave the antenna and you run. You understand me? I understand. Say you promise. Jake, promise me. His hand gripped hers with surprising strength. If it goes bad, you save yourself. The mission isn't worth your life. Maya looked into eyes that were identical to her own, saw the fear and love and desperate hope there. I promise, she lied. Chen handed her the tactical radio, showing her the frequency settings. Once you're up there and the antenna's live, switch to this channel. It's the emergency QRF frequency. Call sign is Guardian Actual. You say, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Guardian Actual declaring broken arrow. FOB Guardian under attack. Immediate QRF required. Then you give them our coordinates. Broken arrow means we're being overrun, Morrison explained grimly. It's the highest priority distress call. Everything stops. Every available asset diverts to you. How long until they arrive? The three men exchanged looks. Finally, Chen answered. Marines at Camp Leatherneck can have birds in the air in 10 minutes. Flight time maybe 30 minutes, so 40 minutes total. 40 minutes, Maya repeated. She'd have to hold an exposed position alone for 40 minutes. Doc pressed something into her hand, Jake's sidearm, a Sig Sauer P226. Backup weapon, 15 rounds, point and shoot. He also gave her 2 extra magazines for the M4. 110 rounds total, make them count. Morrison moved to the emergency tunnel entrance, checking the passage. We'll create a diversion. Give you 60 seconds to get clear, then we'll open up on the main door, make them think we're trying to break out that way. Maya stripped off her camera bag, a photojournalist's most prized possession, and handed it to Doc. If I don't make it back, there are photos in there. My whole career. Make sure they get published. You'll publish them yourself, Doc said firmly, but he took the bag. She turned to Jake one last time. He'd managed to prop himself against the wall, his face gray but his eyes clear. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry I can't be the one to go. I'm sorry you have to do this. Don't be. Maya checked her rifle one final time, chambering a round. You spent years preparing for moments like this. Turns out you were preparing me too. She moved to the tunnel entrance. Morrison gripped her shoulder. You get that antenna working, we'll owe you our lives. Just have coffee ready when I get back. Good coffee, not that motor oil from the mess hall. Chen managed a weak smile. Deal. Maya looked back at her brother one last time. Jake raised his good hand, a salute, a blessing, a farewell. She returned it, then dropped into the tunnel. The passage was narrow, dark, smelling of damp earth and concrete. She activated the night vision and the world turned green. Behind her, she heard the steel door seal shut. Maya was alone now. She crawled forward, rifle dragging beneath her, tactical vest scraping against the tunnel walls. 20 meters. 30. The exit was ahead, a metal hatch leading to the surface, to the battlefield, to whatever awaited her in the burning ruins of FOB Guardian. She thought about fear, about courage, about the fine line between them. She was terrified, her heart hammered, her hands trembled, her breath came short and fast. But fear didn't matter anymore. Jake mattered, Doc mattered, Chen and Morrison mattered. They'd given everything to protect others. Now it was her turn. Maya reached the hatch, pressed her ear against it, listening. Gunfire in the distance. Voices shouting in Pashto. The crackle of flames. She gripped the handle, said a prayer to a god she wasn't sure she believed in, and slowly, carefully pushed it open. The night rushed in smoke, heat, the smell of war. Maya Torres, photojournalist, civilian sister, climbed out of the tunnel and into hell. The real fight was about to begin. The night air hit Maya's face like a furnace blast, smoke, cordite, and the copper tang of blood. She emerged from the tunnel behind the skeletal remains of the motor pool, exactly where Jake had said she'd be. Through her night vision, the world was rendered in shades of green. Burning vehicles glowing white-hot, bodies dark shapes on the ground, and movement. Insurgents patrolling in pairs, searching buildings, consolidating their hold on the base. She was behind enemy lines. Maya pressed herself against the tunnel exit, forcing her breathing to slow. Think like Jake. Move like Jake. She scanned the area through the PVS-14, counting hostiles. 6 visible from her position, but there would be more. Always more. The communications building sat 40 meters away across open ground littered with debris. A straight run would be suicide. She'd have to move slowly, use cover, become invisible. She heard Jake's voice in her head from 1,000 training sessions. Speed is nothing without control. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Maya moved. She crawled first, using a destroyed Humvee for cover. Her tactical vest dragged against the ground, the rifle awkward in her hands. 20 meters. She paused behind a concrete barrier, controlling her breathing, listening. Voices nearby, 2 insurgents walking patrol, their AK-47s slung casually. They passed within 5 feet of her position, so close she could smell their cigarette smoke. She didn't breathe until they were gone. 15 meters to the building. The gap between her cover and the next position was exposed, 3 seconds of vulnerability. Maya watched, waited, timing the patrols. When a burst of gunfire erupted from the bunker, Morrison's diversion, every head turned toward the sound. She ran. 3 seconds felt like 3 hours. Her boots pounded the dirt. The rifle banged against her chest. Any moment she expected bullets, shouts, death. Then she was sliding behind a pile of sandbags, her heart threatening to explode from her chest. Made it. The communications building loomed above her, its white paint scorched black from fire. The exterior ladder Jake had mentioned was there, a metal frame running up the east wall. But between her and the ladder stood 10 meters of completely open ground. No cover, no concealment. Maya studied the insurgent positions through her night vision. They were focused on the bunker, preparing for an assault on the steel door. She could see them placing explosives, arguing about placement. They expected the Americans to be trapped inside, helpless. They weren't watching the roof. Now or never. Maya sprinted for the ladder. Her boots hit metal rungs and she climbed, hand over hand, rifle bouncing against her back. The ladder seemed to go on forever, 10 feet, 15, 20. Her arms burned. The tactical vest felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Then she was pulling herself onto the flat roof, rolling away from the edge, gasping for air. For a moment she just lay there, staring at the smoke-filled sky. She'd made it. Against all odds, she'd made it. Get moving, Jake's dying. They're all dying. The roof was exactly as Jake had described, flat, with a concrete equipment housing in the center containing the antenna array. Maya low-crawled to it, using it for cover. The severed cable was where Chen said it would be, dangling against the building's exterior wall about 3 feet below the roofline. She'd have to lean over the edge to reach it. Maya lay flat on her stomach, extending her arm down. Her fingers brushed the cable end. Not quite. She shifted forward, half her torso hanging over the void, reaching, stretching. Got it. She pulled the cable up, finding the other severed end still attached to the antenna housing. The toolkit was in her vest pocket. She pulled out the cable stripper, the wire nuts, the electrical tape. Her hands shook as she stripped the insulation away, exposing the colored wires beneath. Red to red, blue to blue, green to green. The wires were thin, delicate. Her photographer's fingers, trained for precision work, matched them carefully. Twist, cap, tape. She worked methodically despite the adrenaline screaming through her system, despite the sounds of battle below, despite everything. 5 minutes, Chen had said. She was on minute 6 when the cable suddenly came alive. A faint hum, the antenna array's indicator light glowing green. It worked. Maya grabbed the tactical radio, switched to the emergency frequency, pressed the transmit button. For a horrible second, she heard only static. Then, "Frequency is active. Identify yourself, over." A voice, an American voice. Someone had heard her. Maya's voice came out as a croak. She cleared her throat, tried again. "Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Guardian Actual declaring Broken Arrow. Fob Guardian is under attack. We are being overrun. Immediate QRF required. How copy?" Static. Had they heard her? Had the transmission? "Guardian Actual, this is Reaper 6. We copy your Broken Arrow. Say location and status, over." Relief flooded through her so intensely she almost sobbed. "Reaper 6, Guardian Actual is at..." She rattled off the coordinates Chen had made her memorize. "Approximately 40 to 50 hostile insurgents have breached the base. 5 friendly personnel alive in the communications bunker. 1 critical casualty requiring immediate medevac. Request immediate air support and ground QRF, over." Guardian Actual, Reaper 6 copies all. QRF is spinning up now. ETA 35 minutes. Can you hold? 35 minutes. Maya looked at her watch. 3:47 hours. She had to hold until 4:22. "Reaper 6 will hold. Just get here fast." "Roger that, Guardian. Help is on the way. Reaper 6 will remain on station. Break. Be advised, we're scrambling Apache for immediate air support. ETA 15 minutes. Can you mark your position with infrared strobe?" Infrared strobe. Maya frantically searched Jake's vest, found the device, activated it. Through her night vision, it pulsed like a beacon. "Reaper 6, IR strobe is active on the comms building roof. How copy?" "We see you, Guardian. Hold tight, the cavalry's coming." Maya allowed herself one moment of hope. 15 minutes until the Apache arrived. 35 until the Marines. She could do this. She could. Shouting below, Pashto voices, urgent, angry. She risked a look over the equipment housing's edge. Insurgents were pointing at the communications building, at the antenna, at the cable she'd just repaired. They'd seen the indicator light. They knew someone had restored communications. And they were coming for her. Maya watched as a group of 6 fighters broke off from the main force, running toward the building's entrance. They'd be on the roof in less than a minute. She pulled the M4 around, checked the magazine. 30 rounds. She had 2 more magazines in her vest, 90 rounds total to hold off an unknown number of attackers for 15 minutes. The math wasn't good. Maya positioned herself behind the equipment housing, using it as cover, sighting down the rifle at the roof access door. Her hands were steady now, her breathing controlled. Fear was still there, coiling in her gut like a living thing, but it was contained, manageable. She thought about Jake, bleeding out in the bunker below. About Doc, Chen, and Morrison, trusting her to save them. About every photograph she'd ever taken of warriors in combat, thinking she understood what they faced. She'd understood nothing. Until now. The roof access door burst open. The first insurgent came through, rifle raised, scanning for targets. Maya's training took over, front sight, center mass, smooth trigger press. The rifle barked, the insurgent went down. She shifted to the second target, fired again. Another hit. The remaining 4 scattered, taking cover, returning fire. Bullets sparked off the concrete housing, some passing so close Maya felt their passage. She ducked, moved to a different position, returned fire. 1 more down. 3 left on the roof. How many more coming up the ladder? Her radio crackled. "Guardian Actual, Reaper 6. We're tracking multiple hostiles converging on your position. Hold on, the Apache are pushing hard, 12 minutes out." 12 minutes. Maya could hear more boots on the ladder, more fighters climbing to kill her. She changed magazines, her hands working automatically. 60 rounds left. This was really happening. She was in a firefight. She was shooting at people. People were shooting at her. And she had to survive for 12 more minutes. The insurgents rushed her position together, trying to overwhelm her with numbers and firepower. Maya Torres, civilian photojournalist, raised her rifle and did the only thing she could do. She fought back. The first rule of a gunfight: keep moving. Maya fired a 3-round burst and immediately rolled left as return fire chewed through the space she just occupied. Concrete chips exploded against her face, drawing blood. She came up behind a different section of the equipment housing, acquired a new target, an insurgent advancing along the roof's western edge, and squeezed the trigger. He went down, but 2 more came through the roof access door. Then 3 more appeared at the top of the external ladder. They were coming from both sides now, trying to flank her position. 8 hostiles on the roof, maybe more below. Maya's world compressed to a cycle of sight, shoot, move, reload. Her photographer's eye, trained to see compositions and angles, now calculated fields of fire and dead space. Every position she took gave her different advantages, different vulnerabilities. She used them all, never staying static, always flowing like water around the concrete housing. An insurgent got close, too close. She saw his face clearly through the night vision, younger than Jake, maybe 19. He raised his AK-47. Maya's rifle was already pointed at him. She fired twice. Center mass, just like Jake taught her. The young fighter crumpled. She felt nothing. There was no time for feeling. Her radio crackled through the chaos. Guardian Actual, Reaper 6, 10 minutes to Apache arrival. How's your situation? Maya ducked as a burst of automatic fire ripped overhead. Reaper 6, I'm engaged with multiple hostiles on the roof. They're trying to overrun my position. Roger, Guardian, keep that strobe active. The pilots need to identify you as friendly. The IR strobe still pulsed on her vest, invisible to the naked eye but blazing through night vision. It was keeping her alive. The Apache would see it, distinguish her from the enemy. But it also meant she couldn't turn off her night vision without losing her ability to see in the dark. A grenade arced through the air, landing 5 feet from her position. Move, move, move. Maya threw herself backward as the explosion erupted, shrapnel whining past her head. The blast wave slammed her into the roof surface, driving the air from her lungs. Her ears rang, her vision blurred. Get up or die. She forced herself to her knees, disoriented. An insurgent rushed her, thinking she was finished. Maya's rifle came up on instinct. She pulled the trigger. Click. Empty magazine. No time to reload. The fighter was on her, swinging his rifle like a club. She blocked with her own weapon, felt the impact jar through her arms. They grappled, falling, rolling. He was stronger, heavier, trained. He got on top of her, hands reaching for her throat. Maya remembered Jake's hand-to-hand training. When you're outmatched, fight dirty. She drove her thumb into his eye. He screamed, rearing back. She bucked her hips, rolling him off, scrambling away. Her hand found Jake's pistol on her hip. She drew, pointed, fired. 3 shots. He stopped moving. Her hands shook as she holstered the pistol and reloaded her rifle. Last magazine. 30 rounds left. 8 minutes until the Apache. The radio traffic was constant now. The quick reaction force coordinating. The Apache pilots receiving their briefing. The whole machinery of American military power grinding into motion. But they were still minutes away, and she was here, now, bleeding and running out of ammunition. More insurgents appeared at the ladder. They'd learned to be cautious, using covering fire, advancing by pairs, professional, organized. These weren't random fighters. This was a coordinated assault by people who knew what they were doing. Maya picked her shots carefully now, making every round count. She hit one fighter in the leg, sending him tumbling off the ladder. Shifted aim, hit another in the shoulder. They pulled back, regrouping. A moment of relative quiet. She used it to check herself. Blood ran from cuts on her face and arms. Her ribs ached, probably bruised from the grenade blast. Her right knee throbbed where she'd landed wrong during the grapple, but she was alive, still functioning, still fighting. Guardian Actual, this is Reaper 6. Apache flight is 5 minutes out. Say your ammunition status. Maya looked at her magazine indicator. Reaper 6, I'm down to my last mag. Maybe 20 rounds left. A pause, then. Guardian, you need to hold for 5 more minutes. Can you do that? Could she? Maya looked at the roof access door, at the ladder, at the insurgents regrouping in the shadows. They were preparing for a final rush. They knew help was coming. They had to take her down before the Apache arrived. Reaper 6, I'll hold. Because what else could she say? That she was terrified. That she'd never been in a real fight before today. That 3 hours ago she'd been a civilian photographer who'd never pointed a gun at another human being. None of that mattered. Jake was dying in the bunker below. Doc, Chen, and Morrison were counting on her, and she'd made a promise. We protect each other, always. The insurgents came all at once, a coordinated assault from 3 directions. Roof access, ladder, and somehow they'd gotten men onto the adjacent building who now fired across the gap. Bullets came from everywhere. Maya fought like a cornered animal. She used every trick Jake had taught her, every lesson from the range, every instinct she'd developed. Shoot, move, use cover, conserve ammunition. She hit 2 more fighters, drove back a 3rd. But they were closing in, overwhelming her with numbers. A bullet grazed her left arm, burning like fire. Another hit her vest's ceramic plate, the impact like a hammer blow that drove her to one knee. She kept firing. 15 rounds, 10, 5. An insurgent made it to the equipment housing, coming around the corner at point-blank range. Maya's rifle was pointed the wrong direction. No time to swing it around. He raised his AK-47, triumph in his eyes. Then the sky split open. The Apache attack helicopter came in low and fast, its 30 chain gun roaring like the voice of God. Tracer rounds, red streams of death, carved through the night, walking across the rooftop. Insurgents disintegrated under the massive firepower. The fighter who'd had Maya dead to rights simply ceased to exist, obliterated by high-explosive rounds. A second Apache joined the first, then a 3rd. They circled Fob Guardian like avenging angels, their weapon systems painting the base in infrared and thermal imaging, distinguishing friend from foe. Guardian Actual, Reaper 6, Apache on station, get down and stay down. Maya dropped flat as the helicopters unleashed hell. Rockets screamed from wing pylons, impacting insurgent positions with devastating precision. The chain guns never stopped firing, their distinctive BRRRRRT sound filling the air. The rooftop firefight was over in seconds. Bodies littered the roof around Maya's position, some she'd put down, some the Apache had eliminated. She lay gasping, unable to quite believe she was still alive. Guardian Actual, Reaper 6, Marines are 3 minutes out. Sit tight, we've got you. Maya keyed her radio with shaking hands. Reaper 6, thank you. Guardian, you held that position like a goddamn warrior. Well done. She closed her eyes, fighting back tears. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. Below, she could hear the Apache continuing their work, systematically destroying insurgent positions around the base. The Marines would land soon. Jake would get his medevac. They were going to survive. Maya's rifle lay beside her, bolt locked back on an empty magazine. She'd fired every single round. 3 minutes until rescue. She just had to hold on for 3 more minutes. After everything she'd survived tonight, 3 minutes seemed easy. Almost, the Marines came at dawn. Maya heard them first, the distinctive thump-thump-thump of Black Hawk rotors cutting through the smoke-filled air. She tried to stand, to wave, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. She'd been holding her position for so long that her body had simply shut down, running on fumes and adrenaline that was now completely spent. Through her night vision, battery dying, the image flickering, she watched the helicopters flare over the compound. Fast ropes dropped and Marines slid down like spiders on silk threads, hitting the ground in combat formation. They moved with lethal efficiency, the Apache providing overwatch as they cleared the base building by building. Guardian Actual, this is Reaper 6. QRF has boots on ground. Stay on the comms building roof with your IR strobe active. They're coming to you. Maya's hand fumbled for the radio. Roger, Reaper 6. Her voice was barely a whisper. Within minutes, she heard boots pounding up the ladder. Her hand instinctively moved toward her empty rifle before her brain caught up. These were friendlies. She was safe now. A helmeted head appeared over the roof's edge, weapon raised, then lowering when he saw her IR strobe. Friendly, we got a friendly. More Marines topped the ladder, fanning out to secure the roof. One knelt beside Maya, his young face creased with concern. Ma'am, are you Guardian Actual, the one who made the call? Maya nodded, unable to form words. Jesus Christ, another Marine breathed, looking at the bodies scattered across the rooftop, at the spent brass casings everywhere, at the blood, so much blood. She held this position alone. A corpsman was at her side, checking her wounds. Multiple lacerations, contusions, possible cracked ribs, gunshot wound to the left arm, through and through, clean. Vitals are stable, but she's in shock. He wrapped a thermal blanket around her shoulders. Ma'am, you're safe now. We've got you. My brother, Maya croaked. Jake Torr's in the bunker, he's dying. The Marine sergeant keyed his radio. Command, we need immediate medevac for multiple casualties. Priority 1, Navy SEAL with critical shoulder wound in the main bunker. The bunker's secure, another voice crackled back. We've got 4 survivors, medics are with them now. Maya's world tilted. 4 survivors, Jake, Doc, Chen, Morrison, they'd made it. They'd all made it. The corpsman helped her to her feet. Can you walk, ma'am? I think so. She made it 3 steps before her legs gave out. Strong hands caught her. I got you, the Marine said, lifting her easily. Let's get you down from here. The descent was a blur. Maya's vision kept fading in and out, consciousness slipping like water through her fingers. She was vaguely aware of being carried across the compound, of the organized chaos of a combat zone being secured, of the Apache still circling overhead like protective dragons. Then she was in the medical tent and there was Jake, pale as death on a field stretcher, but his eyes were open and searching, and when they found her, his face crumpled. Maya. Sir, you need to stay still, a medic was saying, but Jake was already reaching for her with his good arm. The Marine set Maya down gently on the stretcher beside her brother. Their hands found each other, gripped tight. Jake's skin was cold and clammy, his pupils dilated from blood loss, but he was alive. He was alive. You crazy, Jake started, but his voice broke. You weren't supposed to, you should have. Shut up, Maya whispered, pressing her forehead to his. Their childhood ritual, their twin connection. We protect each other, always. Doc Ramirez appeared, limping but grinning through exhaustion and pain. She saved us, LT. Your sister saved every one of our lives. Morrison was there too, leaning heavily on Chen, his bandaged leg unable to support his weight. The brass is calling it the most successful broken arrow response in theater. Minimal friendly casualties, complete tactical victory. He looked at Maya with something like awe. Because of you. The base commander, Colonel Peterson, strode into the tent. His weathered face was unreadable as he approached Maya's stretcher. For a long moment, he just stared at her, this civilian photographer who'd become a warrior in a single night. Then he came to attention and saluted. Maya's eyes widened. Around the tent, every Marine who could stand did the same, a sign of respect reserved for fellow warriors, for those who'd proven themselves in combat. Miss Torres, Peterson said formally, On behalf of the United States Marine Corps and the men of Fob Guardian, thank you. Your actions under fire saved 15 American lives and maintained this strategic position until reinforcements could arrive. His voice softened slightly. You have my deepest respect and my apology for calling you a liability. Maya didn't know what to say. She just nodded, overwhelmed. The medevac helicopters arrived minutes later. Maya and Jake were loaded together, Doc's insistence overriding protocol. As the Black Hawk lifted off, Maya got her first clear view of Fob Guardian in daylight. The base was destroyed, burning, littered with bodies and debris. The communications building where she'd made her stand was pockmarked with bullet holes, its roof scorched black. Looking at it from the safety of the helicopter, she couldn't quite believe she'd survived. Maya, Jake's voice pulled her back. His eyes were serious, searching hers. What you did up there, do you understand what you did? She thought about the fighters she'd killed, about the blood on her hands, literal and figurative, about the moment she'd crossed the line from observer to participant, from documenting war to waging it. I understand, she said quietly. You're going to carry it. What happened tonight? The faces, the shots, all of it, it doesn't go away. Maya looked at her brother, at the haunted eyes she'd noticed when she first arrived, at the weight he carried that she'd never fully understood until now. I know. But you're not alone. His hand squeezed hers. I'm here, we'll carry it together. The flight to Bagram took 40 minutes. Surgeons were waiting when they landed, whisking Jake away immediately. Maya was treated for her wounds, 14 stitches in her face and arms, 3 cracked ribs, the through-and-through gunshot wound cleaned and bandaged. The doctors wanted to keep her for observation, but she refused until she knew Jake was stable. The surgery took 6 hours. When they finally let her see him, Jake was unconscious but alive, his shoulder reconstructed with pins and plates. The surgeon told her he'd make a full recovery, though his SEAL career was likely over. Maya sat by his bedside for 3 days while he recovered. Doc Chen and Morrison visited when they could, sharing dark humor and war stories. The bond between them had been forged in fire. She was one of them now, whether she wanted to be or not. On the 4th day, Jake woke to find her asleep in the chair beside his bed, her hand wrapped in his just like always. Hey, he whispered. Her eyes opened. Hey yourself. They didn't need more words. Everything that mattered was in that grip, that connection, that unbreakable twin bond that had survived childhood, separation, and now war itself. 2 weeks later, Maya's camera was returned to her. The photos from Fob Guardian had already leaked to the media, images of daily life on a remote base, of soldiers preparing for missions they might not survive, of the human cost of endless war. They were published in major newspapers worldwide. But Maya's story, her fight on the rooftop, her desperate stand to save her brother, that became something else entirely. News outlets called her a hero. Military analysts studied her tactics. Social media exploded with debates about civilians in combat zones. Maya ignored most of it. She returned to her journalism, but everything had changed. She no longer observed from the outside, safely behind her camera lens. She carried the weight now, the same weight that all warriors carried. The faces of the men she'd killed haunted her dreams. But she also carried something else. The knowledge that when everything was on the line, when people she loved needed her to be more than she thought she could be, she'd risen to the challenge. 3 months later, at Jake's medal ceremony, he received the Silver Star for his actions during the siege. Maya stood in the audience wearing civilian clothes, her camera around her neck. The base commander had recommended her for recognition too, but she declined. She wasn't a warrior. She'd just been a sister protecting her brother. As Jake stood on stage, his rebuilt shoulder still healing, their eyes met across the crowd. He smiled, the first real smile she'd seen since before his deployment. And she knew they were going to be okay, different, changed, carrying burdens they'd never asked for. But together, always together. That night, as they sat on the porch of their mother's house sharing a beer, Jake asked her, "Any regrets?" Maya thought about it, about the 48 hours that were supposed to be a simple visit, about the woman she'd been when she stepped off that Chinook, about the warrior she'd become when the bullets started flying. "No," she said finally, "you taught me something important that night." "What's that?" "That courage isn't about training or uniforms or being a professional soldier." She looked at him, her twin, her mirror, her other half. "It's about what you do when someone you love needs you, when everything's on the line and you have to choose between fear and love." Jake raised his beer. "To choosing love." "To choosing love," Maya echoed, and they drank to survival, to sacrifice, to the unbreakable bond of twins who'd walked through fire and emerged stronger on the other side. The war would continue, the nightmares would come, the scars, physical and psychological, would remain. But they'd faced the worst night of their lives and survived it together. And that, Maya thought, was everything. The end.
Se l'ho persa. Ieri è stato fantastico, sono contento, Zino, sono veramente contento per te. Davi, ma sbaglio o mi vedi viola? No, sei blu. Sei blu. Non so se potrebbe sembrare viola, però no, io ti vedo blu, eh. Non lo so, eh. You tell me.